Welcome to another edition of the Green Beige Fantasy Spot. As always, that is AJ. He is the green. I am Ken. I am the beige. And we are back after a week's break to talk about fantasy. Now, as always, we like to get you guys caught up on what's happening in the league and who's doing what and what have you. But before we get into that, AJ, how are you, my brother?
I'm as good as can be. I've had a rough fantasy week, but hey, we move. They've a good few weeks to go, so let's see what happens. Might have to shake things up though.
Understood. I am feeling the exact same way. In my 5 leagues, I went 3-2 this week. So at
Hmm.
least I won more than I lost, but a couple of those losses did sting. How did you do in your fantasy leagues this week?
Um, I snatched a defeat from the jaws of victory in the last 2 minutes or so in one of my leagues. So I think I ended up 2-4 this weekend.
Mercy.
Yeah, yeah, it was rough. It was a rough weekend. Some of those were self-inflicted. There were changes that I was thinking about, and just they ended up. Yeah, I should have made changes that I didn't make. Some of them were out of my control. It was a whole plethora of things this weekend, boy.
I
Last
could
weekend, sorry.
I could imagine. So just to get the folks all caught up on what's happening in the show league, in the Green Beige Fantasy Football League, in week 4. My team, the Beige Bombers, we took down the Long Bay Bayonets 147.5 to 116. Alberta Tyrant, they took down Eckler and Koch 164.5 to 141. Team Club Sheshe, they went 164 over Ad Hawkinson 155. Team Bricks, they fell to Kawhi Knott 130 to 133.5. That one was actually kind of close. And then Denver Ravens Revenge. They took down the London Learners 157 to 126.5. So what that means for the standings is right now the Beige Bombers are at the top of the eastern side, and the western side, Denver Ravens Revenge, they are at the top. Both teams are 3-1. On the east, the Long Bay Bayonets are 2-2, as well as the Alberta Tyrant Kawhi Knot. And then Team Burks is at 1-3, pulling up the rear. Over on the west, Denver Ravens Revenge, as I said, they're at the top 3-1, tied with London Learners at 3-1. Team Club Sheshe, they are 2-2. And then Ad Hawkinson and Eckler and Koch, they are both 1-3. The season stats so far for points for puts the Beige Bombers at the top, and Ekra and Koch, well, unfortunately, they have a lot of work to do. They are sitting in 10th. So that is what is happening in our league so far. And of course, week 4, 4 weeks are in, and for many of our leagues, this is kind of about the quarter or 1/3 of the way in, depending on how many weeks you have for your playoffs and how your playoffs are structured, that we can start looking to see what the trends are and start to make some determinations as to who and what changes need to be made.
Mhm.
Now, AJ, when we are looking at the positions that we have, especially the main scoring positions, and we're looking at the kings of fantasy, who have been your kings of fantasy for the quarterback position so far?
Oh, my guy Justin Herbert. He hasn't let me down in any week so far. He hasn't let me. He's given exactly what's been expected. Um, I mentioned in the Green Beige podcast that he was my number one target at quarterback in mostly. I didn't go for him in every single league. In certain leagues, I did look at other options because I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. But in our league here, he was my number one choice, and he hasn't disappointed. I mean, a lot of other people have, but we'll get into that. But Justin Herbert has done exactly what I expected him to do through these first 4 weeks.
All right. Well, in our league, my quarterback was Matthew Stafford. And when we're looking at the lists of who has been performing and how they've been performing. Matthew Stafford, I guess you can say he's been as good as can be expected. He's the 8th ranked quarterback in fantasy so far. Your guy, Justin Herbert, it may actually surprise you. He is the 14th ranked quarterback in fantasy so far in PPR leagues. Patrick Mahomes, he is number 1. Kyler Murray is number 2. Jalen Hurts, surprise, surprise. Jalen Hurts is the number 3 ranked quarterback.
Okay.
And then Tom Brady and Sam Darnold round out the top 5. Daniel Jones is 6th. Josh Allen is 7th. Lamar Jackson is 9th. And Russell Wilson, they complete the top 10. So those are the heroes for the quarterback position so far. Who has been your hero or your heroes so far for the running backs?
Well, personally, on my team, like I said, at one point, sorry, I said earlier, again, I said on the green page that Chase Edmonds is someone that I was looking at during drafts, because I know that with what's his name, Kenyon Drake vacating the number 1 position at running back in Arizona, that Chase Edmonds, who is more of a dual threat than Drake himself was, that he could be a very major asset, even though James Conner came in. And my prediction was right. Chase Edmonds has actually been really good so far. I just found it hard to trust him on a week in, week out basis, and I should have done so last week. He was sitting on my bench. He was sitting on my bench, just accumulating points. He had 120 yards on the ground, 19 more in the air. He didn't get in the end zone, but it's just testament to what he has been doing for the season so far. He's kind of been like my underdog, and I'm kind of really happy that I have him in a good few leagues so I can plug him in now. But for Ad Hawkinson, he's probably been one of my more consistent running backs in the team, and he's not even listed as one of the best, but my team is, you know what? Sorry, before we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll get to the GOATs in a second. On my team, I have Najee Harris and Alvin Kamara. I have Alvin Kamara in all but one league. Alvin Kamara, so far, he is ranked as the 13th highest ranked running back, and Najee Harris is 12th. We've had some up and down games with both of them, but so far they have been relatively consistent. Derrick Henry, he's had a couple stinkers so far this season, but he is still the number 1 ranked running back, both in terms of average and points. He's averaging 22.4 points and 89.5 points in total. Austin Eckler is 2nd. Ezekiel Elliott, the rebirth of Zeke, he's 3rd. Jones is 4th, Aaron Jones. Cordell Patterson, or Cordell Patterson, however you pronounce his first name, he is 5th. And I think, that is a surprise for me. That is a big shock that he is that high. Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, they are 6th and 7th. And then David Montgomery, James Robinson, and Joe Mixon, they round out the top 10. Now, when we move over from the running backs to the wide receivers, well, for sure, we know Cooper Kupp is king of the hill from what he's been doing so far this season. But who else is your hero for this wide receiver position thus far this season?
So again, I look at my team and someone who I had on the bench because I thought they would have had a tougher matchup this week. DJ Moore, down in Carolina. I you know what? I expected him to have a good year, but damn, DJ Moore been doing it though. And like I said, I left him on the bench last week because I thought the Cowboys defense was going to be too tough of a matchup for him. If I had plugged him in, I would have been celebrating a victory in this league, in our Green Bay league this week. He had 8 receptions off 12 targets, 113 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and even had 1 rush for 6 yards, right? And this is coming off of the previous week where he had 126 yards through the air. In the first 2 weeks, he had 80 and then 79 respectively. So DJ Moore he's been one of the top performing receivers in the league and of course in fantasy. And I feel like at this point, especially in my team, I need to. He can't even be a matchup sort of receiver. I may need to just leave him in every week right now, the way it seems.
So somebody that has been very, very productive for me, and I don't think he is on my team in this league. He is definitely though on another fantasy team that I have is Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel has been having a great start to this season. On my team, I have Cooper Cup. So, I'm feeling pretty good about my chances every week with him and Matthew Stafford as my starting quarterback wide receiver duo. Adam Thielen has also been relatively productive. He is the 11th ranked wide receiver in fantasy thus far. Tyreek Hill, he is second. Debo Samuel is third. DJ Moore is fourth. I'm going to skip the person at number 5 for now, and you'll hear why in a little bit. Jamar Chase, he is sixth, which is, all the thought that I had coming into the season was how he couldn't catch. But he's the sixth ranked wide receiver in fantasy thus far. Terry McLaurin, he is seventh. Justin Jefferson is eighth. Tyler Lockett, ninth. Marquise Brown is 10th. And I'll come back to that fifth ranked wide receiver, as I said, shortly. The tight end position now, AJ. I know you've been raging about your guy, TJ Hawkinson. So I'll give you first crack. If there is anybody other than Hawk, who is your fantasy king at the tight end position right now?
Yeah, actually, it's Darren Waller. As much as I love Hawk, where Waller was available, I did go for him. To the point where one of my teams is named in one of my leagues, the one in which I'm actually defending champion, I named my team after him, to the window to the Waller. He's been a solid performer, and based on the numbers we're seeing here, he's the third best this is in standard, but right behind Travis Kelce and Gronk. He's number 3, and even though he didn't have the best of games last time around, he still will give you decent enough production. Came up against a tough defense on Monday night, but generally, Waller is not someone you're going to bench. He's going to stay in your team week in and week out.
Yeah, that's for sure. And in PPR, he's actually the second ranked.
There we go.
Tight end, and I have Waller in quite a few leagues because he was definitely somebody based on his production last season. I definitely wanted to target. Now, going through the list of the top 10, Travis Kelce is king. No surprise there. He is averaging 18.3 points per game in PPR, and he has 73.2 points total. Waller is second. Gronk is third. Which I was very surprised. I was very surprised to see how Gronk was producing at the beginning of the season, but we know that Gronk is going to be out for a couple of weeks. And we'll mention that as well in our injury report. Dalton Schultz is fourth from the Cowboys. He's averaging 14.5. TJ Hawkinson is fifth. Dawson Knox, sixth. Noah Fant, 7th. Dallas Goedert, 8th. Mark Andrews, 9th. He's had a bit of a slow start to the season. And then George Kittle is 10th. Mike Gesicki, I'm surprised that he is actually 11th on this list, knowing that in the first week of the season, he gave me absolutely nothing. He had a 0. He had 2 targets, no receptions, but he is actually 11th. So good for him.
Yeah, he bounced back.
Yep. But there are some folks who are not bouncing back. There are some folks who are continually putting us some pretty poor production every week. We call them the GOATs. And we are going to look at some GOATs. And these are some folks that at this point in time, if you have them on your team, you're probably not doing very well. And if you're not doing very well, it may be a time to start looking for some changes. These guys you may be looking at the waiver wire, you may be hoping that you can bamboozle somebody with a trade, but these are guys that are currently like the albatross around your neck, pulling you and your fantasy team down. AJ, I know you had a lot to say about this, so I'll give you first crack at the goats.
Yeah. So first of all, I need to get to Aaron Jones. Let me not even waste time because I'm very surprised that he ranks number 5 in PPR in running backs because Aaron Jones has been giving me absolutely nothing. He's giving me 1 week above 12. Well, so let's get this straight. For the record, our league is a custom PPR. It's not just whatever the standard. Let me not confuse people. It's not a regular PPR. We have our own custom points for certain areas, and in that, I'm referring specifically to now our Green Bay League. Listen to the first 4 weeks for Aaron Jones for me, right, Ken? 4 points. Second week, 42.5. That's when he had that monster game against Detroit. San Francisco, 18.5. Against Pittsburgh in week 4, 12 points. Ken, this is supposed to be a running back 1, and this man is giving me flex numbers. This is appalling. I'm genuinely surprised this man is ranked at 5 because I'm at the point now where I'm seriously considering trying to see what I can get for him right now because it's not working out, and I don't have that much patience. I don't.
No, but the reason that he's ranked at 5, and I can guarantee you this, the reason why he's ranked at 5 is only because of week 2. That 4 touchdown production, game that he had, that is what has boosted his average and who was boosted his overall points.
It has to be. I mean, yeah, you're right. Not it has to be, but it is. It is. I mean, he does get some yards through the air still, but good grief. I mean, and I really looked for this man in a couple of leagues because I was like, all right, I know he could be a dual threat. I completely overlooked the fact that the man has had issues. He's had butterfinger issues. The boy can't hold on to the ball, and he had a fumble again last week. And he's one of those. He's in a position at the Packers where when he fumbles, you usually see like the backup taking over for a little bit. And I didn't watch their game against the Steelers on the weekend, but I feel like that's what happened because AJ Dillon is actually not that bad. And I'm talking about real life now. AJ Dillon is not that bad. So when Aaron Jones continues to do this foolishness, like not taking care of the football, I could see Dillon getting more work. You know what? I should be telling people. I hope no one from our league is watching this because I'm going to try to trade it. I'm going to try to get rid of him in this league.
Okay, interesting. No, somebody that I was looking at from a running back perspective that has been very, very disappointing. No, you said Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones is ranked 5th. I have Buzz Gaskin, not in this league. I have him in another league. And he is about to get dropped. He is not just going to get, I'm not going to even try to trade him because nobody's going to be stupid enough to take him. He is currently ranked, AJ, he is currently ranked 47th. He's supposed to be a starting running back for the Miami Dolphins, and he is a 47th ranked running back. You understand that we have backups that are outpacing this man by a country mile. No, Miles Gaskin, he is ready for the bin. We're not just going to try to see if somebody's going to take. We are just going to consign him to the stuff bin, and if he manages to turn it around later on in the season, maybe we'll think about him again. But he is one that definitely has to go. Somebody else that I had picked up in a league, I stayed away from him in every single draft, and then somewhere along the line, I just had the idea, because it's early in the season, he might not be so bad. He might be able to give you some points, and he might be, later on when his arm is tired and he can't really throw the ball down the field, then we'll cut him. This is Big Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben.
I didn't even know you picked up Ben.
I picked up Ben. I had Ben on one of my teams for like 2 weeks. I picked up Ben for like 2 weeks. Ben is the 28th ranked quarterback in fantasy. He is above Mac Jones. He's above Trevor Lawrence. He is above Zach Wilson. Those are the guys that he's keeping company with. He's keeping company with
Mhm.
rookies that have never done this before. As I said just yesterday on the Green Beach podcast, Ben right now can't throw the ball further than his shadow. Right now, it is so horrible. I feel sorry for everybody in the city of Pittsburgh. I feel especially sorry for anybody who doesn't have a better option than Ben on your team because he has been the worst. The
Yeah.
worst.
I'm surprised you did that because I feel like both of us were on the same page with Ben. We both stayed away from Ben. And I mean, I understand that in certain cases you may have needed a quarterback to just stream for a week, like just for bye weeks for your starters or something like that.
Yeah, but
Um,
the thing is, it's not even that
mm,
because we are. This is week four.
yeah,
We Nobody's had a bye yet.
yeah.
What I saw,
I'm surprised. I thought that's why you may have picked him up because
man,
of that.
I know what happened. Right, is that I looked at what happened in week one when he played
Mhm.
against the Bills, and he was serviceable against the Bills.
Right,
I was
right.
like, you know, maybe I could pick him up and I could just, like I could just ride him until the wheels start to fall off. I didn't expect the wheels were going to fall off right after that game finished. Right at the end of the final whistle, when they were down in Buffalo, that basically we were going to park the car, and then all of the hubcaps, all of the rims, and everything was just, and the whole car, the wheels just going to go, and the car was just going to drop flat on the road. I didn't expect that, but Ben has been abysmal. There's no other way to put it. He has been abysmal. So
Yeah,
if you
I
have
get.
been anywhere, get rid of him. There has to be a better option out there somewhere.
And I wanted to make mention of two other names quickly as well, right?
Mhm.
Um, you mentioned one Miles, but we need to mention the other one. Talking about wet in the bed, Miles Sanders is ranked 33 in PPR. You know who's outside? He's sandwiched in between Devin Singletary
Oh
and
mercy.
Naeem Hines. Now this is another guy that's supposed to be a running back one based on last season and the projections for this season. Now we
Yes.
know we know Philadelphia's offense hasn't been that good,
Hmm.
um, but it seems like Jalen Hurts has been having to and has been slinging the ball more than putting it into the hands of his running backs. And even so, it feels like Sanders has been taken over in the depth chart by Gainwell. Like when they need somebody to run, especially when they're in the red zone, it seems like Gainwell is the more trusted option right now. I know I didn't draft Sanders in any league because I didn't trust Philadelphia's offense completely, but
Hmm.
I'm still surprised that he's this bad. Secondly, the other name let me mention that I should mention as well is Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, Ken, I just mentioned that Sanders is 33rd in PPR, right? You know
Hmm.
Dalvin Cook is only 2 spots ahead of this guy in 31st. This man was the number 2 running back last season in
Yep.
fantasy.
Hmm.
Yeah. I, again, this is another man I did not trust. And not necessarily to do with his talent, but more so to do with the fact that he always deals with these niggling injuries. So he would give you a big week, and then you would hear, all right, well, yeah, he has a swollen ankle or something, so when he out for 2 to 3 weeks, or some kind of thing like that. So I decided to stay far away from that guy, and I'm glad I did because he has not been doing a single thing to help fantasy owners this year. I know in real life you probably don't care, but we care, bro. Get yourself together.
Yeah, but the thing is, as you remember, I did say this when we were talking about running backs that you might potentially want to stay away from. I said that Dalvin Cook's hamstrings are like dry rubber bands; they are susceptible to pop at any point in time, and he always has some sort of muscular injury. If you drafted Dalvin Cook, if you picked up Dalvin Cook, you would always need to have Alexander Madison on your bench because at
True.
any
You need that
potential, any
handcuff.
point of week, he is going to not be available and
Yeah.
Madison has to play. And it's surprising a little that it happens this early this
Mm-hmm.
season. But yeah, he's another one that's been utterly
And
disappointing.
and on Green Bay's yesterday, we spoke about how bad Atlanta's running game is. Alvin Cook is ranked below Mike Davis. Put that into perspective.
Mercy and grace. And I have Mike Davis. I picked up Mike Davis because Mike Davis was actually, not too bad when he
Yeah.
was filling in for CMC last season,
It
and
wasn't.
he has been completely disappointing. When his backup, Cordell Patterson, is third, and he is all the way down
29th.
at 29. That
29. Mm-hmm.
he's just above JD McKissick, who is a ranked backup behind Antonio Gibson, who is, I mean, he's 17th, but that's neither here nor there. But somebody else, you made mention of Aaron Jones as being someone who has let you down for the majority of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else that has been very hot and cold, but more cold than hot. Clyde Edwards Hilaire.
Oh yeah. I I mentioned him last week.
Yeah, you did.
I mentioned him last week. But his last 2 weeks have actually been looking up. So that's why I left him off of my complete list this week. But
No,
go ahead.
he's gonna have to take some lashes because he I'll preface it this way. In a lot of the drafts that I did this season,
Mhm.
when I started, I usually would go with a running back and a wide receiver. Then
Yeah.
I go quarterback and tight end. That's usually
Mhm.
how I go. But because the way how the quarterbacks were flying off the board, I had no choice then but to adjust some of that strategy and try to grab,
Mhm.
quarterbacks a little earlier. Because if you look at all of my teams, there's only one team that has a marquee quarterback. That is my NFL fantasy team. And they have Lamar Jackson, who isn't known to really light the scoreboard up with his passing. He's more for his running. So when I was forced then to have to try to grab a running back, and then looking at the list, the biggest names are already gone. I was left to draft Clyde Edwards Hilaire in one of these leagues. And it was like, well, at least, like, as you said, you would have expected that he is the running back one for the Kansas City Chiefs. And
Mhm.
you expect the Chiefs to put up some points, which means that at least then when they're trying to control the clock and trying to finish the game, then he'll get some production. And he's not really done much for these first 4 weeks. Where is he ranked? He is the 19th ranked running back in fantasy.
Mhm.
So when I take that into consideration, I'm like, well, he's been getting better, so maybe I'll still keep him around. But
Mhm.
I'm very concerned on a week by week basis when they start him. And no, I mean, this should be no surprise to anybody in that league. I'm 1-3, and I'm not doing very good over there. So yeah, that's been a bit of a
I
frustration.
was I was I was ready to give up on him after the first 2 weeks, but I said, you know what, let me give it one more week and see. In the last 2 weeks, he's actually had 100 yards rushing in each game, and then a little bit more through the air. But um, and actually in week 4, is it week 4? Yeah, both of his touchdowns for the past 2 weeks have been receiving touchdowns actually. So I'm like, you know what? I'll see if I can hold on to him for a few weeks longer, especially given the fact that, like I said, Aaron Jones has been giving me absolutely nothing. So the fact that Edwards Hilaire has been trending upwards in the last couple of weeks, I feel like I need to hold on to him. Just get rid of one and keep one.
Yeah, but you know who's been trending downwards? This is moving over from the running back position to the wide receivers. Robert Woods. Robert
Yeah.
Woods, he was one of my high picks in one of my leagues. He's the 36th ranked wide receiver. You know who else has been not good? Cortland Sutton. Feels a little unfair to be picking on Sutton because he's just coming back from an ACL, but
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
50th. You know who is a casualty of his poor quarterback play? Chase Claypool. He was doing really good last season. He's 55th in the rankings
Oh,
this season. But he's a deep threat. So if he's a deep threat and the quarterback can't throw the ball deep, then what's he really going to do?
then correct.
And then one other name that I wanted to make mention of, LaVisca Chenault. It hasn't looked good for him in Jacksonville because his quarterback hasn't been very good either.
No,
And
hasn't.
he, yeah, this has been
I
rough.
I picked him up he was a late pick of mine in one of my leagues. Can't recall it. Only a single one, right? Generally, I did not trust anyone from that Jacksonville offense outside of James Robinson. But I did draft him for the bench. I was like, just let me see what he does throughout the first few weeks and then can make a determination from there. And I don't think I've dropped him as yet, but I am on the verge of doing so because he's not been doing anything.
Yeah, I had him in
He's
one
not
of
been
my
doing
leagues.
anything.
I had him in one of my leagues, and he actually had a better game this week against the Bengals than he's had
Mm-hmm.
in weeks past.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not been consistent. He's been consistently poor more than he's been good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you have LaVisca Chenault, well, I hope that he's not somebody that you need to start.
Yeah, he should never. If Lavisca Chenault is a guarantee, like he is a guaranteed starter in your team, generally you need wide receivers. I can't even say Chenault is like the Mendoza line. He's beneath the Mendoza line of receivers in fantasy. So
Yep. And it's not his fault because
it
he
isn't.
is
It
still
isn't.
he is a good player. But when you are the wide receiver, depending on the passes coming from Trevor Lawrence, who has been average when you're looking at it in real life and
Mm-hmm.
below average in fantasy, then your wide receivers are going to struggle. Now, the tight ends, there weren't many tight ends that you could say have not, well, that have been disappointing because we know that there is the top level of tight ends, Kelsey, Gronk, Waller,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course Hawkinson and Andrews. But Andrews, he's been having a bit of a down year so far. But when I looked at those goats in the tight end position and those who were coming in with a lot of hype for this season, two names jumped out at me.
Mm-hmm.
One you mentioned yesterday, Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is the 22nd, yes, 22nd ranked tight end in fantasy so far. I didn't plan on picking him up. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't gonna put my hopes and dreams on Kyle Pitts. I don't. As you know, my rule is I don't pick players from my division, and I was not gonna break my rule unless Kyle Pitts was there hanging around in like round 12, and that was never going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
The other one though that I did pick up in one league, and I'm a little bit like I want to drop him, but I don't have good options on the waiver wire.
Mm-hmm.
Is one Austin Hooper of the Cleveland Browns because his quarterback has also not been very good. Just
Yeah.
for reference, Baker Mayfield is the 25th ranked quarterback. No wonder then his tight end is the 23rd ranked tight end. So yeah, when you put
Yeah, I
all
only
of this
picked up.
together, mm-mm.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that when you put all of this together, it really does not spell for a good combination for Mr. Austin Hooper.
Yeah, I only picked up Hoop as a backup to fill in on bye weeks because I just did not have very much faith that he would see a lot of targets in that offense. I know he could be useful, possibly for a week, but I didn't have much faith. With regards to the Kyle Pitts one, man, I was high on Kyle Pitts, and I guess I was in recent history. I've seen that when Atlanta drafts a wideout for Matt Ryan, they tend to get some work, right? It happened with Calvin Ridley. When they already had Julio, you drafted Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley actually had a very good first few seasons. So I figured the same was going to happen at this point, but I guess Matty Ice is not the same. And like I said in Green Bay yesterday, I haven't been looking at Atlanta well enough to see if the issue could be how Pitts is being used in the offense. So I know at this point I need to hold on still because there are the tight end position is a very is slim pickings all over.
Yeah, it is very, very hard to find replacements in tight ends. You're just
Mm-hmm.
hoping that the big ones stay fit because those who
Definitely.
are down the list generally do not give you a whole lot of production.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now that brings us quickly to our injury report. We'll wrap this up on our injury report this week. We had quite a few big names, productive players in fantasy take some knocks this week. First one I wanted to make mention of is Teddy Bridgewater. He's actually been better than anticipated here in Denver, but he has a concussion. He was knocked out of the game on Sunday with the Ravens with a concussion. And right now we are unsure as to his status. We don't know how bad the concussion is. And
Mm-hmm.
concussion is one of those things that you just have to wait on to see how it goes. Um, so if you have Teddy Bridgewater, you may want to start scoring the waiver wire to see who's out there. I'd probably still try to grab Drew Lock, even though he has been more cold than hot. I'd probably risk at Drew Lock before I go after the likes of a Zach Wilson, a Jacoby Brissett, um, any of those guys.
Mhm.
Also, we know that Rob Gronkowski, he has some fractured ribs. He went back into the game on in week 4 when he took that massive hit, and he continued playing, but he was out for the homecoming game with the Patriots this week. And we're hearing now that he may be out for 3 to 4 weeks with some fractured ribs. It's amazing some of the things that these guys play through, because if I have fractured
Very much
ribs,
so.
I am probably just laying in bed trying not to breathe.
Facts. Facts. I'm not laughing at him, but yeah, yeah.
Somebody else now from the running back position that we are also hearing has an injury. David Montgomery, he has some knee problems. It seems he has avoided the dreaded ACL tear, but he is going to be out for another 3 to 4 weeks. So that means that someone that immediately takes a lot of interest is what's his name? They're back at Damian
The
Harris.
basket.
Yeah, Damian
Damien?
Harris. I think that's his name.
Damien Harris is the one at the Pats.
Oh,
Damian Williams or Darrell Will.
it was
Who's
one
the
of those
backup?
running backs that was with the
With
Chiefs that
Kansas City, yeah.
that is now with Chicago.
It could be Damian Williams. I think it is Damian Williams.
Yeah, let me get the correct name for the Chicago Bears. Yes, Damian Williams.
Yeah,
You are
Damian
correct.
Williams.
Damian
Yeah.
Williams. No, he is slated to be the starter because they have a rookie in Khalil Herbert behind him, and Tariq Cohen. He is still on the injured reserve because he had off-season surgery on his knee from last season. No, let's see who else we have. Andy Dalton. He is he was ruled out for the game against Detroit, and Justin Fields did take the Bears to a win, but the head coach Matt Nagy, he has said that as long as Dalton is fit, he will start. Jimmy Garoppolo, we made mention of this yesterday in the Green Bay show. He has a calf injury. We honestly don't know what the status is with him as yet because it is still early doors with Jimmy. But of course, when you hear Jimmy, you know an injury is not far away, and he has already gotten one. So chances are I would not expect him to start this week. I do not know who has him, but Tony Jones Jr., the backup running back for the New Orleans Saints, he was carted off the field on Sunday with an ankle injury, and he is going to be out for at least 3 weeks. Will Fuller from the Miami Dolphins, he has a broken finger, and he is already ruled out for this week. They were saying he is week to week, so you have to keep an eye on that. Amari Cooper, he has a gimpy hamstring. Um, he did return in the game this weekend, but he only had 3 targets for 68 yards and a touchdown. So you will have to keep an eye on him. Julio Jones, and AJ Brown. Like just combine the two of them to Julio Brown.
Right?
Julio Jones and AJ Brown, they were both ruled out for week 4 with hamstring injuries, but the Titans are hopeful that they will both be back for week 5. Diami Brown from the Washington football team, he was limping off um, this weekend, but he had one reception on 2 targets for 19 yards, but he is not a well-known player, so chances are that doesn't really matter for most of us. And finally, Logan Thomas, the tight end for the Washington football team, he has a hamstring injury, and he was initially ruled as questionable on Sunday, but he was out for the rest of the game. And as we are recording this on Tuesday, We will not know for sure who is in and who is out for the weekend. So definitely keep your eyes and ears peeled for the injury reports as they come out on Thursday and Friday leading into the weekend. Now, AJ, I think that is a good spot that we can wrap this week's fantasy spot up
Yeah.
for this week
Oh,
4 and week 5 of the NFL season.
yeah. I just wanted to mention one start and sit each that I've been looking at this week. The start is actually more of a sleeper, and I feel like this week could be a very big week for Devontae Parker. Miami. They're coming up against the Bucks. Don't expect Miami to win the game, but Devontae Parker is actually averaging 8 targets per game so far this season. He's been catching over 50% of those. And as I mentioned in the Green Bay podcast yesterday, the Bucks defense in the air is the worst in the NFL right now. Yeah, the defense is decimated, and so Parker could have a field day. I'm just saying, he could be a sleeper if he needs someone to stream for this week. And in terms of staying at the wide receiver position, I feel it's very important to mention this. DK Metcalf has been having a very good fantasy season thus far. However, he's about to encounter Jalen Ramsey. Historically, in fantasy, DK Metcalf has not done well when he's been covered by Jalen Ramsey. His best return was in 2019. In 2019, no, sorry. Yeah, 2019. 2019. He had 6 receptions off 6 targets for 78 yards, no touchdown. But just generally, in that same year, he did have a touchdown in an earlier game, but that was 2 receptions of 3 targets for 44 yards. Last year, it wasn't good either. Did not get to the end zone one single time while being covered by Jalen Ramsey. So Jalen Ramsey usually locks him up. That's the bottom line of it. So consider resting DK for this week. I would be more surprised than not if DK has a big week, especially given that it's going to be a short week for them coming up against Jalen. I think it's going to be too tough of a matchup. So I would fear DK for this week.
Well, I just know that in terms of the sitting, anybody that has any wide receivers from the Pittsburgh Steelers knows a good time to put all of them either on your bench or on the auction block to see if somebody else out there wants him more than you do. I do have to make a slight apology to my opponent for this week just gone, Omar Eagle Clark, aka Mars or Marza. He was saying that he wasn't sure if to start Jalen Hurts or to start Lamar. I told him that I would have started Lamar 10 times out of 10. And then what happened was Jalen Hurts had 70 points and Lamar had 50 odd. And if he had started Jalen over Lamar, he would have beaten me. So my advice didn't quite work for him.
So that's why it looked bad. It looked like it's sabotage, man.
No, but
in fairness, anyone to make that decision on the day, because someone else asked me about Jalen Hurts on the day too, and I told him I think it was Jalen or even Kirk Cousins, and I just don't trust Jalen Hurts that much. I didn't trust him that much, especially going up against who they did. I didn't expect him to have that monster of a game. So I understand where you're coming from. It just looks bad that he asked you for advice while he was going up against you.
Well, he didn't ask me. He has said it on Twitter, and I responded on Twitter. This is the conversation that we had for the entire Twitter space to see. So he understands that I didn't do it on purpose. I just gave him my honest opinion, and it didn't work out for him.
Hard luck, Marcel.
Yeah, hard luck indeed. So that brings us to the end of another Green Bay Fantasy Spot. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and tell a friend. This is where we will be every Thursday. So, as always, that is AJ. He is the Green. I am Ken. I am Paige. We will see you next time.